In this video we will create a motorbike game. Motorcycles are a bit more difficult to control than cars. There are a few extra things that you need to take care of. But in this video we will create all the basics for a nice motorbike game. You can use that as a base to create your own racing game or stunts game, for example. Right, let's get started. As always, we start by creating a Unity project. In this case we will create a HDRP project. Then we will start searching on the internet for a seamless texture. We want to use that as the base, as the ground texture. So we will tile it many times, and you don't want to see like squares on the floor. So we need a seamless texture. I think this one looks okay. It says that it's 248 by 248 pixels, but in reality it's only 640 by 640. I think that's because you needed to pay for the high resolution version. But fortunately we can upscale it with this online tool. So then we will have a sharper image that will be suitable for the ground texture. You can see there that it's 640 pixels now. But once it's upscaled 4 times, it's about 2000 square pixels. So that's much better. And now we can adjust it a little bit in paint.net to make it exactly the 248 pixels. 2048 is a power of 2, and that is better for graphical cards to process. So that's always a good idea to create textures that are a power of 2. We will also create a normal for this texture. There is this online tool that will generate normals for us based on the image, and that brings a little bit of depth into the texture. Personally, I think that looks much better than without normals for a ground texture, because you want to have something like some higher and lower parts that's just natural to have, and in that case it doesn't look that flat. So now we can create a plane and we put the texture on it. You can see over here the texture, and we will tile it 100 times because we have a large plane. And if you zoom in a little bit, you can see what it looks like. And we can put the normal in, and you immediately see the difference. Here at the normal map weight of 0, you see the original, and here you see it with the normal map activated. And it makes it look like the terrain has some bumps on it, which in reality it would have as well. Then we're going to create some objects in our scene in order to demonstrate the motorcycle controller. So this is a ramp, a free model that I've downloaded. You can also just use a square. But we need to create colliders on them, because we want to go onto that ramp. And in this case only the mesh collider is suitable. You need to make it convex as well. And it more or less resembles the shape of the ramp. So it will look like we are really on that ramp with our motorbike. And then we're gonna create a sphere, make it a flat sphere like some sort of bump on the terrain, and you can drive on it with the motorbike. We will also put the same texture as the ground texture on there, but you can see that we need to make a copy because we want to have a different tiling so it blends more into the terrain. And then finally a cylinder where we can also drive over and use it like a kind of a bump on the road. These also need to have mesh colliders, by the way. That's the only collider that's suitable. The default template already contains sky and fog volume. And now we will add some volumetric clouds. We already have a cloud and fog volume from the template. So the only thing we need to do is enable the volumetric clouds in the settings. And then we can enable them and you will see some clouds in the sky. So that's an easy way to get some more interesting environment already. Another small thing that I don't like is the sun. I think it's more nice if it's a bit lower in the sky, and in that case the temperature of the sun will also be less because it's like a little bit in evening where you have like a red sun. Gives it a bit of atmosphere. Now we are ready to download our motorbike model. I found quite a few on internet that are all free downloadable. I guess people like to make motorbikes. The only thing you need to look out for when using a motorbike model is that it needs to have a separate wheels and also separate steering handles. So the whole steering part needs to be selectable. So that's the wheel and that's the steering part you see there, and also the steering handles should be selectable. So we will put all those things in the front of the bike, the steering handle and the front wheel, into one parent object, and that parent object we can then rotate and it will look like we're rotating the bike. So it's not just the wheel but also the mirrors and the steering handles and everything in the front of the bike. That's different than with cars where you can just get away with rotating the front wheels. So I found this bike suitable. We will change a little bit the colors of the bike, so I extracted the textures and I can now modify the material. I think the metallic look is better on the chrome parts, so I put it like a metallic and a lot of smoothness, so it really is reflecting the environment. We need to tilt the bike a little bit because the bike is a little bit tilted and we want to have it straight, so we need to like rotate it a little bit so that it's straight on the road again and not tilted like this. This is fine if the motorbike would be standing still, but we will be driving it, so it should be completely symmetric. You can introduce some new game objects in the hierarchy of the motorcycle and then put some parts of the motorcycle as a child of that game object, and then you can just rotate that game object and put it in a proper position. You can see that now we have all objects under one root steering object, and we can rotate that left and right, and it rotates the bike like it would in real life. So with the steering handles and the front wheel and everything. And for the rear wheel we need to do the same. So put every part of the rear wheel under a root object, and that root object will be rotated and will represent the rear wheel. So those parts all need to be rotating when we are driving. Can remove that part. And now we will add the Cinemachine package, because we want to use it for the camera. And also the input package, the new input system, which is way better, and I don't know why Unity still didn't make that the default. So once we've added those packages, we can start to create the Cinemachine camera that will follow the player. We set it to track a camera route. That's a game object. That's a child of our motorbike. And while doing that, we also add a rigid body to the motorbike, so we can apply physics to it. You see that it already works. The gravity is working, but we don't have a collider yet, so the bike just falls through the ground. So that's the first thing to fix. So we'll add a box collider, which will represent the bike. A little bit later we will make the box collider a bit smaller, so the wheel colliders, which are also colliders, will stick out and will hit the ground first and not the box collider. It's important to make the motorcycle drive. And now we will add a character who is driving the bike. Let's go for a woman this time. Put her in a sitting position. This is a driving animation. That's already a bit like we want, but we need to modify that a little bit later on. So we will download that, the model together with the animation, in the Unity format. And then you can add it to the project and put the character in the scene. We will make that character also a child of the motorcycle object, so it moves along with the motorcycle. And we need to scale it a little bit, so she's not too big. It would look like a mini bike like that, so let's change the scale a little bit. I think this is about right. And now we can create the input system. Create some player input. Create an action map. And put some action buttons in there. We will have the move and the look. We will move with the WASD keys, and we can look around with the mouse. Or use a gamepad. We've also binded that. So that's the great thing about the new input system. You can bind several objects to one action. So in case you're using a controller, it will also work. Now we will add some lights to the bike to make it just look more nice. Gonna use HDR color, that's high dynamic range, and that will make the color like shiny, so it can shine into the environment. Set the intensity quite high, and it will start to look like flashing lights. And we will use that exposure white to make the brake lights blink. So we change the exposure weight by a script, and then that makes the brake light turn on and off. There's quite a few lights on this bike, so we will create a HDR color material for all of them, but we will just add two lights in the scene that will really shine, and one will be the spotlight in front of the bike, that's the headlight, and the tail light we will use a point light for that. So we need to change the tiling a little bit over here to make it more natural looking. And now we're gonna add the head and the tail light. Can change the cone a little bit, make it a bit wider. You can also change the range to make it shine further. And we can set the exposure. Again, quite high to make it really shining. And again, a little bit less temperature to give it that warm reddish look. Now we don't see the light really well. We see only the reflection of the light on the ground, but we actually want to see the light itself as well. So therefore we will create fog around the bike. So we'll use a local fog, volumetric fog, and we will see that makes the light really visible in the sky, because without reflecting on the fog you wouldn't see the light, only on the ground. And it's just something I really like to add to vehicles. So now the backlight, like I said, a point light. And now we will add the wheel colliders. We will have two wheel colliders, because we have two wheels of course, the rear and the front. So we can create one wheel collider object and just copy that game object and rename it. And take a look at the properties of the wheel colliders. They are almost the same, but there's just a few differences to make the bike more stable. We need to change the radius so it really matches the bike. The wheel colliders will not be visible, but they will of course behave as real wheels, so they need to have the same shape and position as the real wheels. And the motorbike controller will just use the position of the wheel colliders to draw the wheel itself. For now we will set the rigid body to be kinematic, so forces will no longer work on it. And if we now play the game, the bike will not fall down, but will stay in its place. And we can see now that the steering part is moving, but the lady is not moving her hands along with the steering handles. So we need to fix that. We need to put her hands on the steering wheel, on the steering handles, and make her move along with the bike. Therefore, we've installed the rigging package of Unity, and we created a rig builder. And now we will add some rigs to that. The first rig we will add is for the body. It's a 2-bone IK constraint, and it will make the body move in the direction where the bike is going. And we'll make the lady move over the bike, let's say. The next rig will be for the left hand. And finally, the third rig will be for the right hand. Be sure that you put the body first, because first we want to rotate the body, and then we want to rotate both hands towards the proper position. So the body rig will make her bend over, and the two hand rigs will make sure that the hands stay on the steering handles. So we specified the three parts of the hands: the elbows and the arms. And the target should be somewhere on the steering part, so that moves along with the steering. So we make them a direct child of the steering part. It's a bit of work to set all this up, but it's really necessary to have this rig like this to create a nice looking animation. You can only change you can only see what the rig's doing when you are actually running the game. So now I'm running the game again, and I'm moving the target of the body. So the lady will bend over. and not sit up that straight like she did in the default animation. You can change the hint as well. Sometimes you need to do that to make the object like flip around. I think this is about it. This is like a natural position to be on when you are driving a bike. So we don't need a real bike animation. We can just use this sitting animation and modify it by using rigging. Now for the hands, we need to move them to the steering parts. And because these targets are childs of the steering, they will move along with the steering. We're setting them one by one, and once we are happy with the position, we need to copy the transform, and then we can stop the game and paste those values in, because values that you change at runtime don't get saved. So don't forget to copy those values once you are happy with the position of your rig targets. You can see the left hand is now already okay, and now we are moving the right hand to the proper position. Okay, I think this is about right. You can see that the two hands of the lady stay on the steering handles when she's steering. Now it's time to set the values for the motorbike controller. We have a motorbike controller and a motor script, bike script on this game object. And first we will set the a text for the speed. So we're installing the TextMax Pro package, and this will display a 2D text with the speed of the motorbike. That's also set in the motorbike controller. Then there is a motorbike controller script and a motorbike script. They are separate because the motorbike script is really the properties of the motorbike, and there can be multiple motorbikes in your game, which all have different properties. But there's only one controller, and the player is using that to drive the bike, and he can only drive one bike at a time, of course. So there's only one controller in your scene. We've also set the camera route. It's a child of the motorbike game object. So the camera will follow the player. And now we will set the material for the rear light. We need to have a reference to that because the motorbike controller will change that rear light for the brake. When he's braking, the light will be more visible than when he's just driving. I've added this free effects package to my project because we can use an effect to show some smoke behind the bike. It's like a dust that's on the ground after you have driven over it with the motorbike. And now we're setting the properties on the motorbike script. We need to tell where we have the wheel colliders, but also where we have our wheel objects and our steering objects. The wheel collider and the wheel objects are different because the wheel collider is used for the physics, but the wheel object itself is then drawn. It's the rendering part of the wheel. Now we will also add some sounds. We have a braking sound and we also have the motorcycle engine sound. So there are lots of sounds on, for example, freesound.org. This is a nice motorbike sound, but you saw a lot of variations. So we only take one small part of that sound where it's like kind of stable, and a part that is suitable to be the engine sound of the motorbike. It will be played looping, so it will continuously play this sound. Sometimes you have on this sound that it's like increasing in volume a little bit or increasing in frequency over time. And if you play it looping, then you will hear it increasing, and then suddenly the volume will go up and down, because there will be like a gap, because when you reach the end of the one sample, it will start to play from the beginning, and if the end is really less volume than the beginning, then it will suddenly be much more loud. So that's why I'm copying the whole part that I use, and I'm reverting the second part. So then it will gradually move from louder to less loud, or from a higher frequency to a lower frequency without that sudden change. So we create some game objects also on the motorbike, because the sound moves along with the motorbike. You can make a 3D sound. In this case, because the camera stays with the motorbike all the time, it can be 2D sound. But if you have a motorbike and you have, for example, NPCs in your game that drive a motorbike, you want to hear the sound of those motorbikes as well, then you use the 3D setting to make the sound really at that position. So what we will do now is we will lock the rigid body, so it will not move and it will also not rotate. And we can see how the wheel colliders affect the motorbike at the moment. And the first thing we will do is to set the center of mass. The motorbike controller also displays a gizmo. It's that red ball that you saw over there. And you can change the center of mass. You should set it manually and put it like on the floor of the bike, just below the bike in the center. Then the bike should be stable. If you put it higher or more to the left or to the right, the bike will not be stable and it will be almost impossible to drive the bike. So you can see it's still fixed, and we can see over here the center of mass, and we can see what's happening once we will start to increase the speed of the bike. The back wheel will start rotating, but it's not rotating like we want, because all these once we've reset the child objects to the 0 position, the back wheel is rotating properly. So now let's run the game again and see what other things we need to fix. The steering part is also very weird, but fortunately we can apply a rotation to it to make things look right again. So we rotate the bike until the lady is sitting on the bike in a straight position, and then we will need to save that rotation values, because we are now running the game and they will not be saved automatically in the running mode. So now we can remove the constraints on the rigid body and see what it looks like. You can already drive away, but you can see that the camera is not really keeping up with the bike, and also you cannot rotate around the bike with the camera with the mouse button using the mouse. So we changed the Cinemachine to make it a third person follow camera. So now we can just see what happens when we're driving the bike. You see that the front wheel is also not rotating properly. So we need to find out why that is. You can set the front wheel orientation, because we need to check there are two types of orientations. And if you look at the red and the blue and the green lines, when you select a game object and you check the rotation, you can see that the axis on which the wheel should rotate. So we take the front wheel, main object, game object, and we rotate it, and we will see what color you need to use. If it's red, it will be X, and if it's green, it will be Y, and if it's blue, it will be Z. So if it's not the right axis, then you can use that option in the motorbike controller to change that. So it's already looking better now. You see that the wheels are a little bit inside of the terrain, so they should be a bit higher. That means that you need to make the wheel colliders a bit lower, because if you make them lower on your motorbike object, the rest of the game objects will be displayed higher. So what we will do now is add some optional features. We will create a particle system to create some sparks, or actually some mud parts that are coming from the rear wheel of the bike. It just makes it look more cool Like if you're driving in mud and all this mud is coming from the rear wheel, but only when you press the gas. So first we will need it to select a particle that we will use, otherwise you will see that it displayed in pink, but I put the default particle on it. I think it's good enough for now. And we will also add some gravity to this particle system. So like real mud, it will first go up a little bit and then it will just fall down. The mud color is of course more like brownish, so we change that as well. And now we tweak a little bit the duration and the lifetime of the particles and the speed, and we change the speed over time, or actually the size over time. We will use a cone to spawn them, but this cone will start at a very small, at one single point, let's say. Yeah, this is just a little bit tweaking until it looks just about right. You can just use the values of the example project if you don't want to spend time yourself to tweak all of this. After playing with the values a little bit, I think this setting is quite nice. Looks like a bit like mud that's coming from the rear wheel. So now we will just add a blink script to make the siren on the back blink. We do that by modifying the value of the HDR color, the intensity. You can see that the siren now is like blinking. You can have different settings to have it blink in a different way. The next effect that I will use is some skid marks. I found an old project on the internet that I will reuse. It contains already a shader and a picture and even a script. So that saves us a lot of time, and it's just what I need for to show the skid marks on the road. For that you will need to add that skid mark script to the scene, like I did over there. That's the location it should be in, because it's hard coded at the moment in my controller, and if it doesn't find it, it will not use it. So let's check if it works. Yeah, you can see now that there is a skid mark. Once you brake, there will be like that dark spot on the road. And over here you can see the final result. I really like the controls of the bike. You can make it more realistic if you want by tuning with the values, but I like it as it is right now. You can download the project and edit everything yourself and create your own nice motorcycle game. Thanks a lot for your attention, and see you in another video.